Good morning, everyone. Hello. It is lovely to see you all today. Welcome to First Parish in Waltham. We are so glad you're here. Whoever you are, wherever you are in life's journey, you're welcome here. My name is Bethany Clem, and I serve as the Commissioner for Music and Worship on the Board of Managers. My pronouns are she and her, and I am wearing a golden yellow shirt today. Here are this week's announcements. We try very hard to make our service as accessible as possible. We have hearing helpers, and large print versions of our order of service and hymnals are available from the ushers. If you're visiting today or new among us, please ask an usher how you can stay in touch. Chaplains on the way would like to extend their sincere appreciation for all the help, support, and bids made at last week's event. The final amount raised is not yet known, but it exceeded their expectations. I know, it is really exciting. Our weekly newsletter is emailed on Wednesdays. Paper copies can be found at the entrances to the building. And this week's edition includes information about upcoming church events like a book group, an invitation to take part in an adult faith formation small group with April on Wednesday evenings in October, including information on how to sign up, and how you can get involved in shaping the content of the new hymnal being produced for worldwide distribution to all UUA congregations. Emma's the expert on that one. Did you know you can draw attention to a special event by giving a donation to light the steeple for a week? Mention of the donation and the memorial will be made in the newsletter and the Sunday service. Please contact our office administrator, also Emma, for details. And now it is my pleasure to turn the announcements over to Reverend Elka.
I'm Reverend Elka. I am a younger, middle-aged person with very short hair who uses they, them pronouns, who's wearing a very bright green suit today and a stole that is rainbow within what looks like a double helix because love is in God's DNA, is what the designer told me when they sold it to me. And I am here to make an invitation to you to make a one-on-one appointment with me this year. It is my goal throughout this year to meet with every single member or newcomer of the congregation or friend of the congregation at least once one-on-one this year. So, to that end, there's a Calendly link now for me that will be in the announcements for a few times, sort of periodically. I might not do it every week, but I might do it peppered throughout the year so that we can spread it out, but so that I still get one-on-one time with each of you. And it's pretty simple to remember. It's just calendly.com/revelka, REVELKA. So please make an appointment with me when you are ready to prepare those of you who like to know what an agenda is ahead of time. My questions for you will be, what brought you here? Why do you stay? And what are your hopes and dreams for this place? It's important, I think, for us in smaller places for me to hear that directly from each of you so that I can keep getting to know each of you individually and the collective as much as possible so that we can make this space home for all of us as best we can. Make sense? Yeah, great. And now I invite you to silence whatever might make noise in your space, to settle in for worship, and to turn around and wave to our cameras so that everyone at home on Zoom feels just as welcome as all of us here. Thank you, thank you. Welcome, you questioners, seekers of truth with a capital T, pilgrims longing for sanctuary, travelers needing harbor from the storm. Welcome those who are holding on by a thread, determined breakers of the chains of loneliness and isolation. You pushed through your fear because something told you that you deserve to belong. Welcome home. Welcome those who braid ropes again and again, who've been there for their siblings who are just hanging on. You gave them a hand into community and told them they could rest here. Welcome, you who seek spiritual and religious community for your children and grandchildren. You entrust your young people here, and we as a community commit to nurture and respect them. Welcome, children and youth. You give us the gift of your wisdom, your joy, your curiosity, and your trust that we will hold all of it safe. Welcome, welcome home. How do we make this tender place wider? How do we stretch into a bolder welcome, a radical generosity of the heart? Can we imagine ourselves the stewards and ushers not only of this place, but into our circle of belonging? Can we commit and recommit to being accountable to one another as an anti-racist, anti-oppressive community that centers marginalized voices, that listens to those voices, especially when they are saying that it is hard to hear? Can we be willing to change? When we break our agreements with one another, can we offer amends? Can we be humble and generous? There is grace enough here. There is in this place the possibility of healing, of repair, of making things right within ourselves, between us, and with the wider world. There is in this place possibility. Welcome home. Our chalice will be lit this morning by Aaron Clem as we listen to these words called Bringing Home to Love by Francis Koziar. Is it both Clem boys coming to light the chalice together? Hooray, it's a group effort. That's even better. We light this chalice today as a people dedicated to personal growth. May it burn away the oppressions we have been taught and glow instead with the humility of learning. It reignite our dreams for a better world and kindle our joy for simple living. May its warmth extend out into the forgotten alleyways of exclusion and bring us home to love, to welcoming, and to all the challenges, the questions, and the blessings of this beautiful path to becoming a beloved community. Thank you. Our opening hymn this morning is number 1029, Love Knocks and Waits for Us to Hear. It's a relatively new one that we didn't realize was new, so our choir is going to help us learn it. You wouldn't know we didn't know that. Will you please stay standing for our unison affirmation, beginning with the word love? Love is the doctrine of this church. Its service is its law. This is our great covenant. Dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Thank you. You can sit.
My name is April Rosario. I am a Black woman who is about to be 37, and I have medium-length locks. I'm the director of Faith Formation here at First Parish in Waltham, and I have a story to share with you. All month long, we are exploring the practice of invitation. So with that in mind, I want to share my rendition of one of my favorite Aesop tables, Mice in Council. And like so many of my favorite stories, this one starts with once upon a time. Once upon a time, there was a family of mice. Now imagine your family, and then double it, and double it, and double it again, and double it again, and just keep doubling it till you've run out of ways to double it, and then double that. This is the type of mouse family we are talking about. And they had taken up residence in a barn. You see, their thought was, there are tons of yummy things we can snack on in this barn. So on day one of finding their way home, they sat down in council and said, should we eat chicken scratch today? How about horse feed? I wonder what the pigs are having. They decided that everything looked and smelled delicious. So they were going to get a little bit of everything. And as mice do, they started to scurry. But they didn't get far, because quickly they heard paws coming. There was a barn cat in their new home. And the barn cat had decided that the mice would not be eating anything. The mice quickly scurried back to their hiding places and said, don't worry, we'll try again tomorrow. The next day, they slowly went out to the pig's feed and the chicken's feed and the horse's feed. But before long, they heard the paws again, and they scurried back to their places. Now this went on day after day after day after day, and the mice started to get hungry. So they sat down in council again, and they said, we need to come up with a plan for how we will know where the cat is. Because if the cat is with the horses, we can go to the pigs. If the cat is with the pigs, we can go to the chickens. So all types of ideas started getting thrown out about how they would know where the cat was. Finally, someone said, what if we put a bell around the cat? Then we'll always know where the cat is. Remember how we doubled and doubled and doubled and doubled the size of the mouse family? Imagine all of that doubling, now squeaking for joy. They all thought this was a fantastic idea. But then quickly the squeaking turned to rumbling, and then silence. No one was moving. One of the younger mouse stepped forward and said, I have a question. This is a great idea, but who is going to put the bell on the cat? The end. Now you might be saying, okay, April, mice, cats, how does this have anything to do with our theme of the practice of invitation? And even more, how does that have anything to do with what we're talking about today? The practice of inviting in welcome. Well, this story is kind of a twisty one. Takes a little bit of turns to figure out why I picked it, so let me tell you. What I love about this story is it highlights that good ideas are wonderful, but they require action. We can all have the idea of being inviting. We can all have the idea of practicing welcome. But someone's got to raise their hand. Someone's got to get the bell. Phoebe's hand is up. And someone's got to put the bell on the cat. Good ideas are just the start. It's the practice, it's the doing that really counts. So that is your challenge today, this week, and all through the month to come, if you choose to accept it, friends. How are you practicing being welcoming? What are the steps you are taking? How are you getting the job done? Now, in just a second, our kids and our youth are going to head off downstairs to do some practicing of welcome of their own. But before we do that, I would like to invite you all to rise in body or spirit as you are able for our next song, which is 364, Come Sing. See, this is what it looks like when you're dyslexic. 346, not 64. Come sing a song with me.
Thank you. Sit. Now, we've come to the time in our service where we have an opportunity to lift up the joys, sorrows, concerns, milestones that make up our lives so that we might feel held by this community through it all. If you'd like to share here in the sanctuary, you can start making a line in this direction, and I will pass the microphone to you. Please remind everyone your name before you share. If you have something to share on Zoom, please drop it in the chat, and we'll read it out into the space at the end of the sharing time. That there are always joys, concerns, complicated mixtures of feelings too tender to be shared publicly, so we light a final candle for all of these that we hold still in our hearts. Would you join me in the spirit of prayer, meditation, reflection, as is your practice? Maybe you take a few big, deep breaths. Maybe you change your body posture in whatever way feels right for you in order to prepare yourself. Maybe you lower your gaze or close your eyes. Great mystery. As we settle into this place of welcome and let the arms of this place surround us, may the silence move in us so that we can settle in even more deeply into the home within, into that place within us where there is stillness and peace, where we know our own worth and the power of our own voice. Throughout our lives, we seek welcome, and so many of us have been told we do not belong. We do not deserve to be loved because there was something about us that made us hard to welcome. Sometimes we were told this with words. Sometimes it was merely barriers to our full engagement, like no gender-neutral bathrooms at all, or no understanding for the ways in which our brains were wired, just to name some examples. And we learned the hard way that there was not room for us. Here, though, we seek to make spaces in our hearts for all those who've been told that they were anything less than beautiful and precious. Here we seek to live into the way in which we are all deeply connected. Here in this quiet, in this place made sacred by generations of beloveds tending to it, may we be continually making room. In this moment, may we be making room within each of us, within our hearts and our bodies, for all of the unexpected gifts and challenges that may come, for the losses and the griefs that will tear us apart whether or not we are prepared, for the joys and the wonders that will rearrange us in ways we could never have imagined, for all that will come, for all that makes up the beauty of this life, and all that comes from staying open to it. We are grateful. May all that is sacred hear these spoken prayers and those lifted up within each of us in a time of silence. We'll stay seated for our next hymn. It's number 1030, How Could Anyone? In the teal hymnal. We'll sing it through twice. 1053. It's a theme today where it's an interactive Sunday where you tell us what the numbers of the hymns are. 1053 in the teal hymnal, How Could Anyone? We'll sing it twice. here at First Parish in Waltham, we are sustained by so many gifts from so many folks. One of the ways we exist is through all of the generations that have come before us, tending this place and leaving something behind that we still draw on financially in order to keep this place open to more people. And a huge portion of that comes from the gifts and the treasures of each one of you, whether that is gifts of time, talent, or of treasures, right? And we say in our order of service every week here that if you're a guest, you should let the offering basket pass you by because you are our guest. It is up to each one of us when we decide it's time for us to start putting $1 or $2 or maybe a crisp 20 into the offering basket because we feel like we are wanting to contribute in that way. And it is our choice when we feel ready to make a pledge to the ongoing sustenance of this place. This is the time where we celebrate that way of being as a community together by both passing the basket and sharing our generosity and by reflecting also on all of the ways in which we sustain this place. The offering will now be generously given and gratefully received. And we have a really big treat.
Consider yourself at home. Consider yourself one of the family. We've taken to you so strong. It's clear we're going to get along. Consider yourself well in. Consider yourself part of the furniture. There isn't a lot to spare. Who cares? Whatever we got, we share. If it should chance to be, we should see some harder days, empty larder days. Why grouse? Always a chance we'll meet somebody to foot the bill. Then the drinks are on the house. Consider yourself our mate. We don't want to have no fuss. For after some consideration, we can state, consider yourself one of us. Consider yourself at home. Consider yourself part of the family. We've taken to you so strong. It's clear we're going to get along. Consider yourself well in. Consider yourself part of the furniture. We don't have a lot to spare. Who cares? Whatever we got, we share. Nobody tries to be la-di-da or uppity. There's a cup of tea for all. Only it's wise to be handy with a rolling pin when the landlord comes to call. Consider yourself our mate. We don't want to have no fuss. For after some consideration, we can state, consider yourself one of us.
Thank you. What could follow that but some Naomi, one of my favorite poets, but I want to get her name right. Yeah, that one. Naomi Shihabnai. This is called Red Brocade. The Arabs used to say, when a stranger appears at your door, feed them for 3 days before asking who he is, where he's come from, where he's headed. That way, he'll have strength enough to answer. Or by then you'll be such good friends you don't care. Let's go back to that. Rice, pine nuts. Here, take the red brocade pillow. My child will serve water to your horse. No, I was not busy when you came. I was not preparing to be busy. That's the armor everyone put on to pretend they had purpose in the world. I refuse to be claimed. Your plate is waiting. We will snip fresh mint into your tea. I made it up without tripping this week. Last week, as I mingled with y'all before the service, one of you asked me if I felt at home yet. Fitting question, given that I was about to preach about home and the ways in which we can be a home for each other as we journey towards home. But I had just 1 week before that discovered where the candles were kept in a bit of a flurry just before the service, because I'm used to knowing where everything is. And you haven't learned some of my quirkier personality traits, like that I wear very bright suits sometimes, and that I carry a giant water bottle most places with me that is also a very bright shade of green that clashes with my green suit today. And that I'll leave it in random places around the church and have to go searching for it because I leave things places. And there are several unpacked boxes and lots of unfinished tasks of settling in waiting for me in my office, physical settling in tasks. So in the moment I was asked the question, I didn't quite know the answer. What did it mean for me to feel at home here yet? How do I measure feeling at home? How do we measure as a community how at home we feel in our spiritual communities? In an article in the UU World about the congregation she served, which had been named a breakthrough congregation, meaning that it had grown steadily and quickly enough that the Association of Congregations had noticed, Reverend Amy Petrie Shaw said this: "The thing I have noticed here is that it's an incredible community, but unlike a lot of communities, it is not closed. You can walk in on day one and know that this is your house too. You are not being welcomed into our house. You are being welcomed home." When we say, "make yourself at home," we may mean drastically different things depending on the situation. Because most often when we say that, at least in our own homes, when we have company over, we don't really mean make yourself fully at home. We mean, please be comfortable. We mean ask for what you need. We mean take it easy. Don't be anxious. We do not mean remove your pants when they get uncomfortable, right? We do not mean you are invited to our family meeting. And we do not mean, please rearrange the cabinets to reflect where you wish everything was in there. Here, though, in this community, we say welcome home. And we mean, please be comfortable. We mean ask for what you need. We mean take it easy, there's no need to be anxious. But do we also mean that everyone is truly at home? And how does that work? At what point does a newcomer truly become home here? How do we make space to live into that radical welcome we say we're striving for? What does it mean to make ourselves at home here? In our literal homes, we allow people more and more access and input over time, right? The first few times I went over to my father-in-law's house to stay over, I didn't feel at home at all, despite them telling me to. My spouse felt at home, though he was just a new love interest at the time. He knew where everything was and knew it was okay to rifle through the fridge to find something to eat for breakfast, but I didn't. He had a deep level of close relationship with the owners that I didn't have. I was new and nervous. So I felt myself asking Seth for everything that I needed rather than the hosts themselves. I didn't feel like I could just grab it myself. And one day when he slept in, I had to choose, it felt, whether to go hungry until the breakfast was served or to do a quick dunks run on my own. I chose the latter. But over time, with the nudging of Seth and the actual inhabitants of the home, I started to feel more comfortable, more at home. And in time, my father-in-law started making sure he had eggs in the house when I visited, because while it wasn't a staple of his breakfast or anyone else in the home, it was a staple of breakfast for me, and he wanted me to feel at home once he learned that was true, right? And his husband started making more coffee on the mornings when I was there, because I drank it and Seth didn't, and making sure to tell me when it was ready so I could have some. And now I walk right into that house without knocking when I'm expected, and they watch our dogs and treat them like their own, and they get the food that our kids like too when we visit. I feel very much at home, but there were stages, and it was deeply related to the depth of relationship I had built with the folks who set the culture in the home, and I had to ask for room to be made too. And it was dependent on the ways in which I felt my thoughts and feelings mattered to them, not just in words, but in actual deeds too. When I started hosting birthday parties for my kids in my current home, we decided to invite all 8 of their grandparents and all of the cousins who live in Massachusetts and their parents too. And we invited old friends who have been like family, who live in this area. We'd been in Indiana for all of the kids' lives thus far, so family and chosen family getting to come to kids' birthday parties was a special treat. Over the course of the first birthday season, I greeted them all with, "Hi, welcome. The bathrooms are here, presents go here, here's the food, and let me show you downstairs to the beverage fridge so that you can find something that you might like to drink." Having a beverage fridge is a dream come true for me. I love having lots of options for folks to be able to choose from. I love curating it with the things that I love and that I think other people in my life love, so that they have lots of great options, and so that I have cool options, so that everyone who visits can find something that they like. I take hosting kind of seriously in my house. Now, all of my kids' birthdays happen in a 5-month period. And then several months after that, I had all of my extended family over for my installation at my congregation, and I found myself just saying, "Hi, welcome, help yourself up to a beverage downstairs." They didn't need the other guidance anymore, right? And by the time we were back to the next birthday season the following spring, I didn't have to say anything to them about the beverages or anything else. They knew they were welcome to help themselves. Over time, and with careful intention on the part of the host, my best friends have learned that they can come over unannounced. My extended family have learned that they can help themselves to whatever they want from the fridge, not just the beverage fridge, but the upstairs fridge too. And when we invite someone to live with us, even for a time, we help them to learn that they are at home enough to get to stay in, to get a say in what the house culture is, or where we put the furniture. We clear out a part of the fridge for them to make space for their things in the storage in the basement. As lay Unitarian Universalist Laura Maltby put it in a reflection she gave at my former congregation for First Parish Dorchester that has stuck with me, she wrote, "If you invite a guest to your house, you don't expect them to rearrange the furniture. But if it is their home too, you need to listen to their ideas about where the sofa and TV should go, and who gets which bedroom, and work together to find a solution that works for everyone." And I would add that the onus really isn't on the newcomers here. There are reasons some folks start fresh in a new place rather than have a partner move into an established home, right? It can be really hard to make a space for yourself if space isn't already being made for you. Often in established communities, whether we mean it or not, our welcome home actually means come in, check us out. If you're enough like us and don't rock the boat too much, we'd love to have you join us. But you might have to make a way for yourself, especially if you are significantly different from most of us or have accessibility needs that we haven't already thought about. We mean if you can assimilate, we welcome you to join us. But this kind of culture does not lead to inclusion. It leads to homogeneity. At best, it leads to subtle exclusion. And subtle exclusion coupled with verbal expressions of inclusion is painfully gaslighty, especially to folks who struggle to find places of belonging already in the world. Author, activist, and Zen Buddhist Angel Kyoto Williams puts it this way: it's the community's job to figure out how we can stretch into the so-called margins to broaden our understanding and our ability to be inclusive. Inclusivity is not how do we make you a part of what we are, but how do we become more of what you are? It is our job as a community, this suggests, to ask everyone who we welcome home to change us. It calls us to live into a welcome that opens our hearts to everyone who enters and the ways in which we might be utterly transformed by them as individuals and as a collective. It calls us to interrogate our hearts and all of the workings of our community to make them more inclusive of the more diversity that we are trying to find here. In other words, it calls us to radical inclusivity, or as Unitarian Universalist teacher focused on inclusivity, C.B. Beale calls it in their workshop, which we'll get to experience in November, preemptive radical inclusivity. That's where you think about it ahead of time before anyone from that community might have ever set foot in your doors. It's our job as a spiritual home to continually be making way in our spaces, in our policies, and in our practices, in our buildings, and in our hearts, for all those who might make a home among us. And here, in a community that has declared that we wish to be inclusive and welcoming, that has become an official welcoming congregation, which means welcoming to LGBTQIA+ folks, and that has passed the 8th principle, which reads, we covenant to affirm and promote journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions. Here in this community that has set the task of growth as part of its vision statement, it is crucial that we continually think about what inclusivity means for us here and now. Because I think making those promises to each other means that for us, radical hospitality and inclusion are necessary postures to practice. It means that by practicing invitation to our neighbors to visit us and to welcome them home here is a promise to try to create an experience where folks can feel a little bit at home, a little bit at peace, a little bit loved every time they cross the threshold. To remove barriers that exist for engagement and commitment in our community that we may not realize are barriers. To make the implicit explicit wherever we can, because implicit culture is a barrier in and of itself. Welcoming Spaces is a group in the church working on auditing our physical spaces to make them more accessible in all of the ways they can, and it's really exciting work that's made huge progress. And our membership commissioner, along with the whole board, is working really hard on making the pathways to membership and real meaningful engagement more clear for everyone. And your work on creating a rich relational covenant over the last several years is a great example of making the implicit explicit, of naming what the culture of this place is out loud for folks who are new so that they can discover right away whether that fits or not, and not have to find out the culture the slow, hard, and often very confusing way that some of our communities make us. And our work with CB Bill later in the fall will help us to continue to assess and work on ways that barriers exist that we don't realize are there. So maybe I do feel at home because I'm starting to see and name the ways in which I want to rearrange the furniture a little and make myself feel even more at home, and to make space for the people that we claim we want to welcome home here. Because you have asked me to do that, and still in the first month it felt like I was too new to make any changes or assessments at all, right? To make any real claims on what I think is best. I was still a guest in a way, a guest with my own parking spot, office, and alarm code, but still a guest. And my role here is not a perfect analogy for how others become engaged and committed, right? Because I got fast-tracked in all those ways I just named. It is a lot slower and takes a lot more intentionality for the process to unfold for our newcomers to feel welcome. You have already had to practice this preemptively making space in a lot of ways that I've already named, but here's some more. By turning the children's library into an office and cleaning out 2 classrooms downstairs, you've literally made physical space for April and the children's program to have here. And the information in the pews that April has created is helping all of us to orient to opening our hearts and minds to the transformation that is occurring as we welcome more and more young folks and their families into our home and make it a place that can be their home too. And Emma, when she learned that at least 2 of our 6 new kiddos that have joined us along with the huge staff transition of this summer, when she learned that 2 of them loved to sing, she started a hymn rehearsal choir at 10 a.m. Sunday mornings to create a space for them to become a part of the music program here right away. And because she, like April, seems to have a keen eye for the subtle ways that exclusion happens in our churches, she's brought this work into both of her roles here as our music director and as our office manager, and has made significant contributions just in my time here that may seem small but are actually huge, like making sure there are menstrual products in all of our restrooms because people of all genders need those things sometimes. And I'll say that while your staff is particularly good at noticing the barriers that might otherwise be missed, because that is just who I think all of us are, I think it's in part clearer to us because we're relatively new. We see things a little bit more from an outsider's perspective still than those of you who have been here your whole lives, or at least for decades. We still haven't made ourselves too at home. When I was first married, we stopped saying, I'm going to do this or do that or the other thing when we were in the home together. And what we named that actually, when we first noticed that hurt, and the name we gave that was, please stop treating me like furniture, right? Sometimes when we're at home, we treat the other people in our home less and less like human beings that we're really excited to see every week, or every day, or every 5 minutes. So in the song, that we heard, did you notice that there was a line in Bethany's song about consider yourself part of the furniture? Don't consider yourself part of the furniture, right? That goes too far. Sometimes, even when we're intentionally making physical spaces for folks, we struggle to make space in how we relate to this home of ours. Because in a place like this one, if we truly want to be open to all of the joy and wonder new folks can bring, we can't make ourselves too at home. We have to keep our pants on, so to speak, and be intentional about how we speak to each other, and to resist the entitlement and protection that can come from feeling a sense of belonging in a place for so long. we can't treat each other like furniture. Entitlement that can make us feel like everywhere here is ours, or that we can borrow things without asking, or that our favorite program is most important, or protection that makes us feel like we must create hoops that folks have to jump through in order to gain access to our tender and precious community and hearts, that makes us nervous about folks that might not look like one of us, or that make us overly excited or too welcoming to folks who look like a group we desperately want more of here. It can be so easy to fall into treating this space like it belongs to us most, and forget the ways in which that can get in the way of the radical welcome we seek here for everyone. Making ourselves at home is a process that takes both the host and the guest working together to make a space and to rearrange things in ways that work best for us. But it's more on the host. And sometimes the hardest part of welcoming is allowing new folks to really change us. Because if we truly grow in all of the diverse ways that we seek, we will necessarily change. Individually, we'll be transformed by the relationships we build, especially with those most different from us. We will grow and learn and evolve our thinking from hearing the ways they view the world and our community and their place in both. And collectively, we will all be impacted by having more diverse voices in our decision-making processes, voting on things at our annual meeting, contributing ideas to committee work, sharing feedback with us about the barriers that we never saw that they see. Returning to the profound words of Angel Kyoto Williams, it's the community's job to figure out how we can stretch into the so-called margins to broaden our understanding and the ability to be inclusive. Inclusivity is not how do we make you a part of what we are, but how do we become more of what you are. We are stretching ourselves here to become more of what we seek, to become more of what we know is yearning for our spiritual home. How might we deepen this work together? How are we crafting a spiritual home of radical welcome for all? How do you want to be a part of it? Because we have tasks, don't worry. I promise there will be lots of opportunities. It starts with opening your heart to the holy place that this is, to the holy place that listening to a fresh perspective is, to the holy place that welcoming is. Let us make space in our building, in our culture, but most importantly, in our hearts. May it be so. Blessed be, and amen. Our closing hymn this week is number 1008. Is that right? When our heart is in a holy place. Did I get it right that time? Hooray! When our heart is in a holy place. Please rise in body or in spirit. Love is knocking. Do you hear it? It's knocking and asking us to make space, but it does not enter, the song goes, until it hears the welcome from within. We are that welcome. We are saying out loud with deed and voice that all are welcome here, that we wish to be changed by newness, that we wish to be inclusive, that we seek to keep our community from becoming closed. We are letting love in, friends, by making space. This is a holy place, a place made holy by each one of you, and by the radical welcome that grows in your hearts. You are a blessing. You are a blessing. Go now and bless this beautiful and broken world.